Hey guys, welcome out to the shop today. I'm going to be working on making a video game controller and a game holder for my kids' room, and they kind of have them laid out on top of the little stand that the TV's on. I want to kind of get something a little bit more organized. That way they're just not just thrown all over the place. And I've already went ahead and got some of the stuff prepped. This is just some ash, I believe, that I had, and we've already planed it down to 3/4 of an inch. These right here are all just scrap pieces that I've had laying around. I still need to plane these down to 1/2 inch thick, and then I have some walnut right here that we're going to be using for little keys on the corners of this box, and then I'm going to be using just some plywood on the base to hold everything all together. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these milled down, or like planed down to the correct thickness, and then we'll start getting stuff cut up. Alright, so I got all this stock prepped to 1/2 inches in thickness, and I've roughed out a drawing of pretty much what I want to do. This is going to be very simple. The edges are going to be about 3 inches in height. These are going to be whatever this is. I think this is like 1.5 inches, and each space is going to be 2 1/4 inches in between the 1/2 inch, and that's going to have the controller so I can sit upright like that, take up less room. And then this area is going to be for where all the games are going to be. This is going to be for Xbox One games and Nintendo Switch games. And so this piece right here and all of these are all going to be 1/2 inches. These are all going to be 3/4. And then we're going to have plywood underneath, and then keyways on the corners to kind of give it like an accent. So right now we got to get all of these cut to the correct lengths. And overall length right here is going to be 20 1/4 for these two sides, 13 1/2 right here. Alright, so we're going to start off by cutting all of my 1/2 inch pieces. The gap is going to be 6 inches in between, but I want them 1/4 inch into each side. So I've got it cut for 6 1/2 inches right here, and we're just going to get those cut out and then move on to the next piece. So right now what I'm doing is I'm taking this piece and I'm going to trim it down to more manageable sizes for the table saw. So before trying to put this on the table saw, I'm trying to get one edge of all these jointed. Alright guys, so now that we have one edge cleaned up and completely flat, I'm going to go ahead and rip the board on the table saw down to 3 inches, because that is the max that I'm going to be able to get with this one right here. I think I got only 3 inches to really, yeah, before it gets into the bark area. So we're going to trim it just to the edge of this. All of them will get the same, then we'll bring them back in and we'll cut 45-degree angles on all of them to the exact length they need to be, and we should be able to start gluing some stuff up. Alright guys, so I went ahead and got all the rabbets made on all these pieces. I tried to pick them out the best as possible, trying to make sure that anything that got chipped out in the planer is on the inside. I did have one that I did not do correct, and I actually have a knot right here. So I'll probably just try to clean that up with some sandpaper and try to do as best as possible to make that smooth. But all of the rabbets are done. So what we're going to be doing now is creating the center part. I went ahead this morning and made up some plans for this. That way I kind of have a better way to go along with this. So my step number 4 that I need to do is go ahead and create all the dadodes and all of the center divider part. So we're going to go ahead and do that. This, I'm going to be dadoing half the depth of this, so 1/4 of an inch into this. And from the outside edge, it's going to be 2 5/8, and then the divider is 1/2 inch, and then after that, each space or dado is 2 1/8 of an inch apart. So I've got these plans. I'm going to be putting them up on so you guys can get them and follow them along if you'd like to. But let's go ahead and get this to the table saw and get this cut. So I got all of the through dados right here completed, and this is what it's going to look like with holding a controller. I don't have anything in on this one yet, but this side will get 6 stop dados in it that I need to get made. But this has it set you can keep the controller upright, save on space, and you can still easily get it in and out. And you can see that all of these are nice and tight. I worked it up to just before the line, and then each one of these is actually numbered, so I know exactly which one they go in. They should all fit in each other's hole because they're all 1/2 inch, but just to make sure that nothing went wrong, I went ahead and labeled all of them, starting with 1 on this end through 6 on this. You can see how right here there was a chunk of a knot that ripped out the wood in the planer, so that kind of sucks, but we're gonna get that fixed up so it's nice and smooth. But right now we're gonna go ahead and start working on the stop dados on this, and also on the 2 sides where this needs to go. So with our setup right here, we have to go ahead and make the 2 stop dados on the ends, and then all of the stop dados right here. So I'm going to work on this one first, and then pretty much mirror off this side on here. And I'm just going to be using a chisel and chopping it out. So it's a very simple technique. You could also use a router to do this. Alright, so as you can see, I have marked out the spot where the center divider piece is going to go, and it's going to sit right there. And I've already chopped out one, and as you can see, it's kind of offset because these are supposed to be mirrored, so whatever you do with this one has to be opposite on this side. So I went 6 inches from here, so now it should be 6 inches from this side. And what we are going to want to do is, by taking your chisel, you want to put it just inside of your marked line and chop it down a little bit. And then this is not exactly a 1/2 inch, although you can chop that end, but when you go to remove the waste in the middle, you have to actually use like a 1/4 inch chisel or a 3/8 inch chisel, and just keep on working at it until you get a nice flat area. If you have a rabbet plane, you can clean it up that way as well to make sure it gets flat, but I'm just using a chisel and a mallet, and that's it. Alright, so I got my test piece in here after I've chopped it away, and you can still see I have some of my line right here on both the edges and on the very top. So I stayed just inside the line because I can always pare away a little bit more material if I need to. I'd rather have this tight than have it too open, have a big gap on the edges. So this one looks really good. So did my other one right here. And we're gonna go ahead and move on to more chopping out some stop dados that have to go on one of these longer pieces. And with this, I'm just gonna match all these up just the same way. I'm gonna chop them out just like this. Just keep on working on it, guys. So I'll get back to you guys whenever I get all those dados done. I got all of the dados chopped out, or mortises, whatever you would want to call them. I mean, they're dados, but I got them all chopped out of the center rail and the side piece. They're pretty good. I'm happy with how they are. All of them are nice and tight. And just did like a basic test fit to see how everything would work out together. And now we're gonna be gluing this up. So for the glue up, what I'm gonna end up having to do is gluing up the outside perimeter first, and then we can start, I can put this in and get that glued up, and then we can get all these little dividers installed as well afterwards, because they can all slip in from the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and get the band clamp and some glue, and we're going to get the perimeter glued up. So here we got the band clamp on, and I've been working with it, trying to get everything all nice and square. So all the corners look exactly lined up like they needed to be, and I've gone through with a square and made sure that everything is perfect, exactly what needs to be happening here. And I've gotten it flipped back over just so I could double check all of the corners, make sure that they were looking good. And so now the outside perimeter is done. Once I can let this dry for a little while, I can flip it back over and I can start inserting all the dividers. I'll do the longer center divider first, and then come back and insert all the individual pieces. And then we'll be putting on the bottom and getting it sanded and stuff. I need to work with some of these bad areas that weren't very good on the wood anyway, and just kind of smooth those out. It's not going to look perfect, but even here's one little knot that chipped out. Alright guys, so I had to kind of jump ahead a little bit around in this video, and one of the main things was because of the weather. We had some really cold weather come in, and the shop is just not set up to do any kind of glue ups with the cold weather. Right now it's currently like 21 degrees outside, so there's no way that I could glue anything up. So I still wanted to keep working on the game station, getting it completed. And as you can see, all of the dividers are back in place now. What I ended up doing was not gluing these in. These are all still loose and just not glued together. The ends are still loose on both sides, right there and there. And so if anything ever really happened, we could always replace these. But for the bottom, what I basically did was cut a sheet of 1/4 inch plywood, which is why we had to have that rabbet around the whole entire edge. And I just mainly screwed 3 screws in that center rail. Now the reason why I did it in the center rail is because this piece of plywood had a little bit of a bow to it, and so the edges were touching, the bottom and the top edge right here were touching the frame, but right here in the middle it wasn't. So I went ahead and screwed that in, which pulled everything nice and tight on the 2 edges, and everything's flat. So before I did all this, I went ahead and pre-drilled the holes, and then I just used 3 screws to hold that together. And now you can see that I just have some pretty much cleaning up in the finishing process. I gotta clean up where the knots are, where the wood was torn during the planing, which is gonna be a tedious process, but it's gonna be able to get done. So I do also want to get a finish put on this, and one of the things that I cannot do is any kind of like a polyurethane or lacquer finish, because it's way too cold here in the shop. So I'm pretty much going to be doing like a waxed finish on this. It'll give it like a little bit of dull look. I was thinking about using some boiled linseed oil on this as well first with a turpentine mix. That way the boiled linseed oil really gets into the wood quicker, dries up quicker, and then I'll just polish out the wax afterwards. So I'm going to start off with some 80 grit sandpaper. That way I can really knock out some of this wood, and then we'll start the finishing process. So the sanding aspect of this is all done, and as you can see, I try to clean up the holes and little divots as best as possible. I have a large little divot right here that got ripped out in the planer, and then this knot chipped and then tore a chunk out of the wood as well. But for the most part, it's all fairly smooth. I did try to work on that and make sure that there was no items trying to grab or going to cause a splinter or anything like that. I'm not really happy with how the ash was going through the planer. I don't know if it's the planer or if it was the wood, but it is what it is now. I'll try to pay more attention to it and try to figure that out on the next one. But for now, what we are going to be putting on is some boiled linseed oil, and then we're going to give this a coat of wax. Alright, so after it has mostly dried, I've already wiped it off with a paper towel, and now I'm coming back with some wax. This is just turpentine, boiled linseed oil, and beeswax mix that I made a long time ago. And I'm just gonna pretty much just rub this in like anything else that I have done pretty much. And this will give it a nice coat of just the wax and make everything feel nice and smooth. And we'll let this kind of hang out on there for a little bit, and then we'll come back and buff the wax out as well, and that will be the final finish for this. It's not hard, it's nothing technical whatsoever. And there is the final outcome of it. It fits 7 controllers and a bunch of games, and even up here in the front I was able to put in some of the cords that they had laying around for charging the controllers and stuff. But you can see everything fits really well together, and they just kind of sit upside down. If you were going to face these the other way, you would have to make this area a little bit wider, so that's why I made it so that they could all fit upside down. See, the games have a little extra space in between it as well. Very happy with the outcome of it, and everything looks great. So thanks guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit that like button and subscribe for more videos.